Hi, this is Paul Morin with the Energy Conservatory, and welcome to our webinar titled Connection Options for the DG-1000. We'll go over a few housekeeping items first. If you're having trouble with the audio, click on Meeting in the main navigation menu and choose the Audio Setup Wizard and follow those steps to get your audio set up. If you're joining using the audio or the Adobe Connect app on a mobile device, you may need to use external speakers or headphones to hear the audio. Go ahead and type in questions as you think of them, and we will be typing in responses as we go along, and we'll also do a question and answer session at the end of the webinar. And as always, this webinar will be recorded and will be available on our websites and YouTube channel soon, as are all of our previous webinars that we've done. So you can check those out, and please give us feedback on what type of webinars you'd like to see in the future. We value your input on that. If you're looking for BPI continuing education units, this webinar is available for one continuing education unit, and we will be uploading that data to BPI, and the CEUs will be awarded by BPI and will be credited after the completion of the webinar. We don't provide a completion certificate, so you'll just have to check the BPI website, and however long it normally takes for those to appear on their website, check with them, check on that website to see if they've been awarded. If you did not provide your BPI number when you registered, you can still send us an email. We will need your full name and BPI number, and in order to receive those credits, you'll need to be logged into the webinar using the same email address that you used when you registered. So if you're watching this webinar on somebody else's computer, you're sharing a computer to view it, if you're not logged in using the email address you used when you registered, you won't get credit. If you're having technical difficulties, please call Adobe Connect Tech Support. There's nothing we can do, so you'll need to go to them and select the option for in-meeting support, and if you do need to call them, please let us know, and let us know how that experience went. We're always trying to improve how we're doing on these webinars, and we've had good luck with Adobe Connect so far. So our agenda for today, excuse me. Our agenda for today is we'll first cover all the network connection options, and then we'll go into some detail about Ethernet connections, Wi-Fi create network, Wi-Fi join network, the USB connections, and then we'll cover updates. Okay, in this image we're seeing the back of the screen and the top of the screen of the DG1000, of the gauge rather, and you can see there's 4 magnets on it for connecting it to our new gauge board, or you could connect it to ductwork or anything metal, and then our calibration information, calibration date, and the gauge serial number. And there's also a battery compartment here. You can see the little screw there. That's the battery compartment, and it has 2 rechargeable, replaceable batteries in there, and you should get a good 10 hours of continuous use. So you may need, depending on how often you have it running, you should be able to get a week or so out of a battery charge. And then on the top, going from left to right, we've got the fan control jack for the fan control cable that makes the connection between the gauge and the speed controller, so you can use the cruise function or do automated testing using software and control the blower door fan or duct blaster fan from the computer. And then the fast charging indicator light and the fast charging port. So that plugs into you plug that into the wall and plug the charger in at that location. And then the Ethernet port, standard USB port, and then an indicator light for the micro USB. So this is a micro USB port, and it's indicator light, and the indicator light comes on when it's charging. So it comes with a 15-foot USB, micro USB cable that has standard USB on the other end to plug into your computer, and you can plug it into your computer to use the TechTITE or TechLog software. And while it's plugged in, you also get a slow charge. And then the power indicator light to indicate that the power has been turned on, and the power button. And the power button is recessed intentionally to prevent it from coming on accidentally. And the boot up time now is about 40 seconds, and over time our intention is to work on making that shorter. So when you turn the gauge on, this is what the home screen will look like, and now we'll switch over to our camera that's showing showing the home screen there. We've got some tubing connected up for the for a blower door test. And let me back out a little bit, and we can see we've got a gauge and a router, and this particular router it costs about $25. And you can see it does have one cable plugged in now and a power indicator there, and you can plug up to 8 ports into that. So we are connected. You can see we're connected to the gauge, and the second cable is second cable here is going to the computer. So we've got one cable to the gauge and one to the computer. And you'll need to make those cable connections before you enable that Ethernet setting. So if we go to the gauge, the main gauge screen here, we can see this is our indicator on what we've got connected, what we've got enabled for our connections, whether it's Wi-Fi or one of the cables is plugged in, and that has just a circle with an X through it, indicating that it. Let me zoom in on that a little bit so you can see that a little better. Okay, so we've just got a circle with an arrow through it, or an X through it, indicating that none of those are turned on. So now I'm going to go back to the home screen and then choose settings and choose right now our network configuration. So these are all our network configuration options, and we can see our mode, it's turned off, and our networking is disabled. And now that I have those Ethernet cables plugged in, I can choose Ethernet as an option. And now it's applying that configuration. So we're making our connection between the DG1000 and the computer. And now it's saying it's connected, and it's been assigned an IP address. The router assigned it an IP address. Okay, we launched TechLog 3, the TechLog 3 software, and we're going to confirm that our Ethernet connection is working. I'm going to go up to the configuration menu, choose settings, Go to scan for ports and devices. And now it'll look for any connection, whether it's Wi-Fi or cable connection. And it found our gauge. I'm going to double click up in the serial number here, choose that gauge, and you can see it filled in what type of gauge it is also. And then I'm going to go to view and edit channel settings here. And we're going to actually do a CAS test where we'll be monitoring the housed outside pressure and the vent outside pressure, and we'll see how those pressures, both those pressures, change as we start turning on exhaust fans. So I'll go through a series where I'll turn on 4 fans, a clothes dryer and 3 fans, and then turn them off, and then we'll look at the results. So I'm going to label this first one, I'm going to change the color to green, and I'm going to call this house to outside, which we're used to seeing as green. Okay, and that's a pressure. And then we'll change channel B to red, and we'll call that, that's in a water heater vent, so we'll call that vent to house. And then we'll click OK, we'll click OK, and then we'll go to the recording pull down menu and choose start recording. So now it's going to go out and look for those devices again and make a connection to them, and ask us to save the file, and then it'll start showing a graph of the pressures. Okay, and I'm going to do auto Y here so we can see our pressures a little better. It's maybe in a little bit too close. It is a little bit windy, but you can also note over on the right here, it's displaying what the pressures are here. And I'm going to choose the second button here, the region select tool, and I'm going to highlight that period, and we can see right now that's about 38 seconds, and I'm going to stretch that out to about a minute because it is kind of windy here, and that'll give us a 1 minute average of those numbers. There we go. We're up to a minute. Now I'm going to do a right click inside there and create a period of record. It's not an air tightness test, so I'll uncheck that box, and we'll call this the pre-test base. It's pretty cool when you can see pressures. When you're seeing all these numbers on your gauge, it's a little confusing, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the clothes dryer on and a bath fan. Okay, that clothes dryer is on, then I gotta wait 30 seconds and turn on the bath fan, and then go upstairs and we're down in the basement now. I'm gonna go upstairs and turn on another bath fan and a kitchen fan. that airtime, but maybe you can see on the graph I turn the kitchen fan on and off, and the bath fan off. Okay, now I'm going to save that test and then we'll put our event markers in there. So I'm going to stop the recording. And I'm going to open the file I just created. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we could, for each of those events where I turned on fans and such, I could create another period of record like this, but I'm just going to do it for the worst case pressure here. So I'm going to click that region select tool, and I'm going to click the period where our pressures were at the greatest here, and we'll call that worst case. And now what I can do is go in, and I'm going to do a right click. I clicked in that period of record and and I'm going to choose show stats. So now I can see we're at about housed outside 1.8, and our vent our vent pressure was about 1.4. And then I can click on our worst case here, and see how much that changed. So we were down to, we're down to 9 pascals now. So we had a change of about 7 pascals, and then we had we're to about 3 here now. So we had a change of about 4 pascals from -1 to 4, and we could do this in increments, create one of these periods for each one to see how much it changed with each device we turned on. So we're going to do a webinar about this later in the spring and go into a lot more detail, but this kind of gives you an overview of the power of TechLog 3. Instead of looking at all these varying numbers on a gauge, you can get a better sense, even on a windy day, what your pressures are. And I'm gonna connect an additional DG1000 here. Let's zoom back out again. So if we want to connect an additional DG1000, I'll connect a cable to that, an Ethernet cable, and then we'll plug it in to any one of these ports except the blue one of the yellow ports on the back of the router. And now we'll get this one set up. So I'll go settings, network configuration, Ethernet. It's applying that configuration. And now it's connected, and it's assigned it an IP address. And now I'm going to open our TechLog software, where we'll be able to see 2 gauges. Go to the configuration settings and scan for ports and devices. And you can have any combination of cables or Wi-Fi in here. So it found those 2 gauges. So now I can double click on the serial number and choose which one which one I want there. And then I could, if I was controlling 2 blower doors, I could set this up as, or maybe I've got 3 blower doors even. I could set this up as a Model 3 fan flow, and then with the second gauge, I could set up channel A as a fan and channel B as a fan. So we get, with 2 gauges, we could have 3. We've got 4 channels. 3 of them can be fans and 1 envelope pressure. And then we can go to recording, start recording. It has this name it, give it a name, and then now it started recording. So if I put my finger on those taps, we can see our pressures go, and we've got our controls here for our fans. So I don't want to go too much into TechLog, but I just wanted to show that you could, if we looked at those configuration settings, we could connect up to 16 gauges to the software, and in this case we've only got 2 connected. Okay, so I'm gonna take that 1 gauge out of the picture here. And we'll turn that configuration off. Let's zoom in on that again. So that's turned off. So now we're gonna choose create a Wi-Fi network, and what happens when we do that? So click on that. Now it's applying that configuration. So now the gauge is broadcasting now. So it's broadcasting under the network DG1000 3007071. So now if I you don't need, you can use a router, but you don't need a router. You don't need internet access. This is broadcasting the signal that you can connect to directly on your computer. So if I go to on the computer, if I go to my Wi-Fi networks here, I'll see that gauge serial number here. So because that's being broadcast directly from the gauge, and now I'll have to enter the password, and the password's really hard to remember. It's DG1000 PW for password. So I'm going to launch our TechTITE software here, and go up to File and choose New Test. Okay. Next, I'm going to keep going, toggling through to get to the test graph page. And now we can see it scanning for connected devices under the status here, the status board. It's now done an auto zero of the gauge, and now we're green. We're idle monitoring. It's made the connection. We're ready to start our test. So these 3 tabs that were gray before are blue, so we can either use the cruise or we can start our test now. So we've successfully made that connection. So I'm going to close out a TechTITE here. No, we're not going to save that. And another pretty neat option is if you want to connect two gauges together. So I'm going to, right now that our second gauge has an ether. Oops, let me switch to our screen so you can see what I'm doing here. Let's zoom back out. So we've got two DG700s. The second one is off, and now I'm going to create a Wi-Fi network with that second gauge. Well, actually, instead of creating a Wi-Fi network with that one, I'm going to choose join network. So our third option here is to join a network. And now what I'm going to do is I can connect this gauge through a router. And with a single gauge, you might want to do that if you want to extend the connection. You can put a router halfway between you and the computer, and you can extend the range and get a more solid signal if you want to connect to the router. And that's what this Wi-Fi joint network is. Or you can use another DG1000 as a router. So that's what I'm going to show here is the network I'm going to join is the network signal being broadcast by the other DG1000. So so now it already says joined here. When you connect to a network for the first time, it won't say joined. It will have you configure that. But let's check on the configuration. So there's a mode tab here and a configuration tab. I'm going to check on the configuration tab, and it already has the SSID entered in there already. So if I click on that, so what the SSID is, and let's see, SSID stands for Service Set Identifier, SSID. And that's DG1000 dash. That's exactly what is being broadcast here. So we see broadcast by DG1000 3007071, and you need to enter that in as the SSID, and it's cap sensitive, so you need a capital D, capital G, and that's already, so the SSID is entered in there of our gauge that's broadcasting that network now, and then the password, DG1000 PW is what the password is for any DG1000, and now you need to apply those changes once you've entered all that information in. So it's applying that configuration. And you can do this with as many DG1000s as you want. So now this gauge has joined this network. So now if I launch our TechLog software, our TechLog 3 software, and go to the configuration settings and scan for ports and devices. Now I'm seeing both of those gauges, and that connection is via Wi-Fi, because I've got, under my connection, I'm connected to that first, the DG1000 that's sending out that signal. I'm connected to that one, and it can see this second gauge through that first one. So that's pretty neat way of doing that. So, you know, if I double click on the serial numbers and put those in here. And click OK. Recording, start recording. You can hear it auto zeroing and then asks us to give that a name. And now we can see it started recording. So if I give those pressure signals, we can see those show up. So I'll close out of that. Stop recording. No, I don't want to view it. Okay, next, well, let's close TechLog here, and we'll take a look at our camera again. So now we showed using the DG1000 as a router, and next I'll show both. Move that other router out of the way, and now this is a Wi-Fi router. And this is the Apple Airport Express. They're widely available, pretty solid. They're around $100. And this other one is another TP-Lynx device that is battery operated, and I think those run around $40 or something. So it's smaller, it can fit in your pocket. It's a little more compact. But we'll use this one for this example. So we're going to put both gauges in router mode in the join network, in the join network mode, and they'll both connect to that router. And you can do this with virtually as many gauges as you want. So we'll just show an example of that. So this one is already in join network. So we'll go to the configuration. Let me zoom in on that so we can see what I'm doing a little closer. This off to the side. Get this so it's centered a little bit better so you can see it. Okay, so you can see there's a mode pull down menu and then a configuration. We're in configuration now, and I'm going to go with that SSID, and this is what we had typed in there, and I'm going to erase that and put the name of this gauge in here. So there's a little tab here. I'm going to need a capital letter P and then small AUL S space IOUTER. Okay, and then the password. Okay, and then apply configuration, and now it's going to search out that router with that password and make a connection to it. So it's applying that configuration, searching for the router and making that connection. Okay, we'll go back to the mode, and it says it joined. So that one was successful, and then we'll move over to the next one, go through that process again, configuration. Oops, and I'm back up here. Network configuration. We're on create network now. We need to join network. So it's applying that, and it'll be searching now for the last configuration it was set up in and try to connect to that. And we'll see what it finds here. Not joined. Let's see what it had set up here. For the SSID, I'm going to take that out of there. And we've got to make cap letters. I'm going to touch this one, P, then go back to the small letters. Okay, and then the password. Oh, I had most of it. Whoops. It's okay. Apply configuration. So it's, it's pretty straightforward. It takes a little bit of putzing around, but then once you have it typed in once, it's, it'll remember that, and you won't have to type it in a second time. Okay, so that one joined. So we're all set. Now I'm going to open up TechLog again. Just to make sure that that we can access those. Oops, I did miss a step here. I'm going to need to go down to my Wi-Fi networks here, and it does see Paul's router there, and I need to connect to that router, right? I need to make the connection with my computer to that router, and once it makes that connection, then we'll be able to see it in configuration settings, scans for ports and devices, scanning for the network. So now it's going to look for cable connections and Wi-Fi connections, and now the both gauges auto zeroed. They're both showing up, so the two are ready. It's detecting those two, and then we'll double click here. Get those two set up in there, and we'll just make sure that that all our recordings are solid here. All the connections are solid. Yep, they both auto zeroed, so it's finding them okay. And it's graphing, so we can stop that recording. And we'll close that down. Okay, so those are some options for making Wi-Fi connections. Either just broadcasting one gauge and connecting to it on a computer, or using one gauge as a router and connecting both that way, or connecting both of them to a single router. And the last connection option is that mini USB port. So let's go back to our PowerPoint, and we've got some information in there. Okay, so for USB connections, we need a DG1000 USB device driver. Needs to be installed on the computer. So a driver needs to be on your computer, and that driver is compatible with Windows 7, 8, or 10. So we want to make sure your computer has an internet connection, and that your Windows update must allow downloads and updates of driver software. So that's one really nice thing about this type of driver is whenever you do your Windows updates on your computer, those drivers will automatically be updated. We ran into some problems with the DG700 driver with Windows 10, and the new driver we got for Windows 10 will automatically update now whenever you update Windows. Whenever you do a Windows update, the driver will automatically update. So that's a really nice feature. And then you'll enable the USB on the DG1000. Choose that last option, and then you'll connect the USB cable to your computer and connect it to the DG1000. And then the Windows update will do a search, and it'll find and install the driver. And once it's installed, the DG1000 networking status will change to connected. So let's try that. I'll grab a USB cable. Okay, we'll switch over and take a look at the gauges again. Expand that out. So we're going to go through that process with the USB cable now. So take this gauge out of the way, and we won't need this router here anymore. We've got a USB cable. So we're going to switch now to USB. And now it's applying that configuration for the USB port. And it says not connected. We haven't connected the cable yet. So we'll plug the cable into the gauge. Oops. Gotta get it so I can see it a little better. Okay, and I'm going to plug it in. I'm going to take a look at our computer. And we're going to need to connect up to the internet. We're still connected to the router from our last step. So now we're connected to the internet. And I'm going to do a double check and see if that so I can go to the device manager, go under network adapters, and it did. See our USB Ethernet cable has been connected there. So let's look back at our gauge screen. It says connected. So now we have made that connection with the USB. So nothing came up and showed me that, but let me see, what's this down here? Oh, that's the device manager. But that cable, that driver under the network adapters, that driver is showing up there, and we are connected. So let's let's start TechTITE and see if we're connected. We'll go through that process, and since I've teased you enough times with TechTITE, I think we'll actually do a test this time. So we'll keep going next. There's a lot of information you can enter. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on TechTITE, but there is a lot of information you can enter in here if you want it all to show up on a report. So now idle monitoring came up, so we're ready to start a test. So what I'm going to do, let's go back out here. So this is the new gauge board. We'll get the gauge hooked up in there. And let's get our tubing connected here a little bit better. So we want to be on the input on channel B. If we go to the back to the home screen and to the gauge screen, we can see we've got input reference. We're on the input on the fan side, and we're on the reference on the other side, and I'm just going to use those slots on the gauge board to straighten this out a bit. I'm going to put our fan control cable on there. There we go. Plugs right in on the top of the gauge. I'm going to turn our speed controller to the just on position there. Now TechTITE is taking control of that gauge, so I didn't have to worry about the mode or the configuration of that gauge. That's all set up here. We see we're set to a Model 3 blower door, and we're going to use ring A on this test, and we'll go ahead and start the test. We'll have to enter our indoor and outdoor temperature. Indoor, we're about 70. Oops, 70. And outdoors, we're about 45 degrees. And that does a density correction. That's why we need that. We're already covered, so we're ready for baseline. So now we can see it's taking samples here. It'll take 100 samples. And it says remove fan inlet and install appropriate flow ring. So I'm going to go get that set up for ring A. Okay, ring A it is. So click OK. Ring A, proceed with test. Now we can see it's starting to adjust the fan speed here. And we can start seeing our building pressure changing here. Okay, our building, now it's starting to take some samples. There we go, so it plotted a point here. And now we can see it's kind of hunting around here for our next target is 45. And once it stays near 45, it'll start taking points. It's taking our second data point. Now it's hunting for a third. Not sure if you can see that little dot moving around the screen, but it's doing the hunting. Okay, it's sampling again on our third data point, and it's going to take 8 data points. And you know, ideally, if we've got a pretty calm day, all of these data points will all pretty much fall in a fairly straight line. And it looks like with these first 3 or 4 data points, we're falling in a pretty good line. So you can see as it's plotting those data points, you know, it's putting a bunch of dots on the screen there, and then it takes the average of those 100 readings and plots a single data point based on the average of those 100 readings. So our fan pressure is getting pretty low, so we're probably going to have to change to ring B before we're done. There we go. Yep, now it's warning us. So I'm going to install ring B. Okay. Now I can see it's ramping up the fan speed again. Now our building pressure is starting to increase a bit. And our fan pressure is up plenty high now. It was down below 20, 25 before, but putting the extra ring on helps increase that fan pressure pretty much. We're going to be on the high end of ring B now. Now it's sampling, so it got up to pressure pretty quickly there. And now it's going to take our last data point at 15. And this is looking like it's pretty calm outside, like we're getting real good correlation on all of these data points. And you'll notice we're not on a linear screen here, we're on a log graph. You notice the difference in, okay, it took our last point, we're ready for another baseline, so we need to cap. Fan. Okay, then we'll look at the results. It's always a good idea to check our results before our test is over, and we've got a really good correlation here. Anything above 0.99 is a good test. That means those data points are falling into line really well, and our accuracy is good here. It's not unusual to see a 2% plus or minus 2%, and we're at 0.4, and our exponent looks good. We want that to be between 0.55 typically and 0.8. Could be outside those ranges, but usually it's fairly close to 0.65, and we've got good plus or really good plus or minus on the exponent, a good plus or minus on the coefficient. So looks like a really good test. So that's it for all of the different ways you can connect a DG1000 to a computer to do an automated test, and kind of a quick overview of doing a test using our TechTITE software. It's got that great advantage of it didn't take that long to run through and do that test, and now we've got all of this really good data showing the accuracy and repeatability of that test. So I'll just go back to the last screen of our webinar showing my contact info, and we'll take some questions.